Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. Here with me is Emmy nominee Robin Urdang, for nominated this year for Outstanding Music Supervision once again for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Robin, I think one of my favorite aspects of Mrs. Maisel when I think of the music, there's always these sweeping shots that or montages of New York City accompanied by a quintessential New York song. Um, and I'm sort of wondering at this point, do you have sort of a cultivated New York playlist that you pull from for that type of moment?
Hi, Sam. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again. Um, you know, the music, we don't have a composer for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So every time you hear music, it's either written by Tom Meisel and Curtis Moore, who write our original songs, or it's music that we've licensed the publishing, but we record the masters to make it work to the scene, which we did a lot of in season 5. And then like I know, and often they're just songs either Amy likes or I like or Dan likes. It's sort of all of us, Amy or Dan might want a song knowing that Midge is going to the train station, so I'll find 5 songs and I'll send them to them, and it's just a plethora of music that we have from the past 5 seasons that some we've really wanted to use. We haven't been able to fit in, and I got a couple of them in this season, so that would make me happy. But it's there's so much New York music, and I'm a New Yorker, so.
Well, yes, same with me. And this season, you're nominated specifically for the series finale, 4 Minutes. And towards the beginning, we have another one of those with I Happen to Like New York, but this one turns comical when Susie is arrested by the cops. And I'm always curious, that song has been recorded by other people. Why was Cole Porter important for that moment?
We used Bobby Short master. The
Mhm.
hard part about it was that it was a live recording. So there were hand clappings, and we tried to get a recording that wasn't live. And we were looking for other music, but this one just happened to like New York. It just worked, and there was no other recording that would work. And when I sent Amy other recordings, it was like, no, no, no. So we wound up using this, we wound up fixing the recording, and we wound up using it a second time where we have a band, a big orchestra that we use, put together people for every season. Every episode, it could be different. And then we recorded our own version of it as well.
Yeah. When you have a song like that that's been recorded by so many artists, is it usually you get a feeling right away that the artist works, or do you have to kind of experiment?
No, we know right away. It comes hand in hand. It's like trying to put in there was a Blossom Dearie song, Doop Doody Doop, a doodling
Right.
song that I've been trying to get in for every season, and finally the last season, the last episode, I was like, yes, but it wouldn't, without Blossom Dearie, it wouldn't work. We use Blossom Dearie, we use so many different artists, Barbra Streisand and various people that just happen to be the sound of Midge, the sound of the show. Their voices are a character of the show, and it's not always about the song. It's about both. It's about the song and the artist.
And there's lots of big musical moments throughout this series. I mean, we're both New Yorkers, so I got a kick out of Leslie Kritzer cameoing as Carol Burnett. But when you're trying to secure rights to songs, would that have been another song if Shy wasn't possible?
No, it would have been Shy. We don't say no. we make it work somehow.
Has there ever been a time where there was just a dream song that was really difficult to secure for the show?
There were like 2 of them, and I can't remember. I erased it out of my head. One was, I think, Bessie Smith, and it was early on, like the first season, and we couldn't get it, and I got something else, and I don't think Amy ever forgot that. It was, the other one worked so great and so incredibly well, but we couldn't get it, and I do remember. I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, there have been very, very few songs we haven't been able to get. when Barbra Streisand was scripted in the first season, I kind of laughed and like was, oh shoot, how am I going to get this? Because that's nothing I would have ever pitched. And Barbara never licensed for TV before. So we had to go through all of these motions and have Amy write a letter and eventually send the recording, the QuickTime to Barbara. And my producer texted me and said, I just saw someone in Malibu open the link. And I said, that would be Babs. And it wasn't, it was literally like 15 minutes later, we got the first approval. So that
Wow.
was, you know, and
Well, we should talk about Barbra Streisand because she has a long history now with this show, with songs being used. And this time, I Stayed Too Long at the Fair is, I believe, the before the credits roll, it's the final song. How do you come to that choice? What goes into picking the very last song that's going to be heard in the entire series?
well, we knew it had to be Barbara. There was just, she was such a quintessential part of this show musically. I think one of my favorite songs ever that Amy and Dan picked, and it was scripted, was Happy Days Are Here Again. And I don't remember what season, they're all one big blur to me right now. But it was ironic on this one because I got a new album sent to me from Pace, who was over at Sony, and he said, here's Barbra Streisand's album that has not been released yet. Can you see if you can use anything? So I listened to it and I loved Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, which we wound up using. And I loved, come on, Robin, see what happens to me. I loved Have I Stayed Too Long at the Fair? And I was talking to my coordinator and I was talking to the producer and I was just like, oh my God, I hope we use these. And I sent them to Amy and she said, whoa, I already know we're using Have I Stayed Too Long at the Fair for the end song. I mean, that's the synchronicity that we have, that everyone on the show has, whether it's costumes or sound or production design. I mean, there was this synchronicity that goes on that when we see something or we hear something, we kind of can convey it and go, this is going to be great. So even though I never said to Amy, let's use that, and she probably never knew this unless she's hearing it on this interview, I literally said, I want to use that in this episode. And it was just crazy,
Wow.
It was like, so things like that have happened.
Is that kind of synchronicity common? You have a very robust career in this field. How often does that syncing happen for you?
Not often enough. No, it happens. I mean, I think when you know a show really well and you know your filmmakers and you know your music, it's gonna happen. I think anybody that knows the job, if you're not in sync. I mean, I work with Luca Guadagnino, and he'll literally call me up and say, darling, what do you think? Should we do this or this? Or darling, and he listens to me and then he said, okay, I'm going to do it my way. No, but it's a discussion that you have. And that I think that I've worked with Amy and Dan from Bunheads to Gilmore Girls Revival to Maisel, and mostly on this. I mean, Maisel's been the closest as far as working together because it's so musical, and Amy will send me something and say, I think it was Pink Shoelaces. There was a scene years ago where she said, I need something like this. It has to have the energy. It has to have I just need something like this. But she sent me something from like 2018. And I said, thanks, Amy. This is really going to be hard to beat. And I came up with Pink Shoelaces, and it's viral now. It's all over. If you go to TikTok with Marguerite Derrick's choreography, it's all over the place. And it was because I knew what she was looking for. And I knew what was going to work, and I stumbled across it and sent it to her, and we used it. So it's kind of, I know Amy and Dan have different musical tastes too, so I'll send different things to each of them, which is interesting.
And do you ever get feedback from the music artists that you use? Like, do we know if Babs, appreciate? I hope she does, because many of her songs have been used at this point.
She wrote an article. There's an article, if you look up why Barbra Streisand allowed her music to be used in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So anybody could find that online, which is really interesting. And basically, she really felt that it was her life in a way. And I think she really connected with it and wasn't using one of the biggest songs, that everybody knew. And that brought her onto it. Blossom Dairy, they always send me things, well, not them, they're not alive, but their label always sends me and music that we've used because we've used them so often. And thank you, Robin Urdang. And I always get Instagrams and Twitter tweets and things like that. So many people have been so grateful. There's one in particular, Paul Williams. We had the Guild of Music Supervisor Awards, and I think everybody knows Paul Williams is like one of the biggest songwriters. And we used one of his songs as an end title. And I was at the Guild of Music Supervisor Awards, and someone came up to me, I think it was Maureen Crow, and said, Paul Williams is looking for you. And he was the Icon Award. And I went, Paul Williams is looking for me? And it wound up that his table is right behind mine. And we were introduced, and he held my hand and just said, I am so thankful that you used our music, my song. I just want to say thank you. And he gets up on stage and he talks about some things. And he said, and I have to say that I had a chance to meet Robin Urdang, the music supervisor. And I was just like, and he said, so many people don't realize what it does when you take old music and bring it back to life. And on my favorite show, I was watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel when my song came up, and I screamed, that's me. And he said, and you would think after all these years that I would be, I knew it was on. He said, but there was something about it. And that's what music supervisors do. And I think it's important to get out there that we are bringing music back to life, whether it be in this show, 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, well, we go all the way up. But it's really, the gratefulness that I've gotten from people just breaks my heart. It's
Well, it ties in too, I think, to something you said towards the start of our conversation, but the musical identity of the show. I think this show has a very strong musical identity, because like even something like Barbra is a callback to previous moments. You also have Till There Was You with Lenny and Midge, which is a callback to an earlier scene, a happy time between them. What goes in? How do you decide when you're going to call back a moment like that?
Well, we get outlines about a week or two before the shoot, sometimes a little longer. We don't get the scripts till about the night before. So when I look at the outline, whether it be music going on camera or music, or nothing's in the outline. So I have to say, okay, where are we going to have music? And we wanted music for the Midge and Lenny scene, for the airport scene, and music. Amy wanted the real thing. I sent her some one stops, and I knew she'd be like, no. And she's like, no, can't we get the real music? I said, I'm already looking for the real music. And I found the company that it wasn't digitized. It was all in reel to reel. And I found the company that actually took it over. And I went through their song list and I saw that, and I knew that there was a scene, and I just went. When I sent some music over, I just said, how beautiful would this be between Midge and Lenny? And we put it it went into the scene. And still now, it's the most incidental piece of music. Nobody, like, I thought I knew it. I knew why we were using it. Amy obviously knew why we were using it. We all knew why. But I thought no one's going to even realize this. I had gotten so many emails and people like writing to me saying, I love that use. What a callback. And I would be like, you got it, because it's not really about that. It's about us knowing the show and us knowing the emotion and keeping it alive. And I felt like for anybody to notice that was huge, because no music in Maisel is incidental music. And you could have put anything back there and it would have been fine. And not having a composer, we don't score those moments. So I think it's the one thing about working on this show is every single piece of music is important. And I'm going to add one more thing. In Joel's Club, see that jukebox? In Joel's Club, there was a scene where that May, his girlfriend, puts in all music, Chinese music, Mandarin. Right. So you can't even hear it, but we went and we recorded like 10 pieces of music with Mandarin singers, big orchestra, and put them on the jukebox. Like, you can't even hear them. But that's how Amy and Dan are. They want everything authentic, they want everything real, and they really want to make sure that the viewers are present and in that space. And I think that's a big thing that we do with music.
Well, I think that attention to detail is probably why you keep showing up at the Emmys here. And this category for music supervision is actually quite new. They only started handing it out, I believe, in 2017. And you actually are the winningest person in this category with 4 wins. You are dominating this very new category right now. So what does that feel like?
Somebody said to me, it's not okay that we're up against musicals. And I said, what's a musical? There's no shows that are musicals. They said, Marvel, your show. And I said, my show's not a musical. I said, but thank you, because that's the biggest compliment we can have, because that means we're using music the right way. And I just felt like the music is such a character that it is why it's, and so much detail, and a team of our producers and Amy and Dan and our songwriters and like everybody, our sound people. It's like an enormous family that just knows how to work together. And the things that go on behind the scenes that nobody even knows, that you're not supposed to know, is huge. It's massive. And going back to your question, I'm so grateful I was nominated. I'm grateful to have won, and it's being nominated is a win.
The interesting thing, that conversation you just referenced, is I think since the advent of this Emmy category, a lot more viewers, maybe people outside the industry, are sort of catching wind of what a music supervisor actually does. It maybe was not a position that they were really conscious of. So with that in mind, what is your favorite aspect of this work? What gets you excited and keeps you coming back?
I love my work. I love what I do. And I started, without dating myself, before we had Spotify, before we could look up songs. Like I had this big phonologue that I had to look up. I thought I was the coolest thing in the world, because it was like thousands of pages, and they only had them in record stores where you couldn't look up information. So I think for the new music supervisors, there's such a plethora of information, and it's so easy to find music. But I think the most important thing is using music the right way. And I feel like I've seen so many shows that the music's great, but I don't understand why it's being used that way. And I watched a show, and just recently, that Keir Lehman did. Hi, Keir, if you're around. Called A Small Light. And the music in that was used so perfectly. It wasn't big, it wasn't over the top, but it worked so well with the show. It's a mini series, a limited series. That's what gets to me when I see music working the right way, and not just thrown in because, oh, we're going to put in a great song. I think since the Emmys, there are so many more shows that are trying to use music to get nominated for an Emmy, I think is what you're trying to say. And some, there's just no reason. And others, like Keir Lehman's a Small Light, it just makes sense, So there was a show I watched once, and had great music, and somebody called me up and they said, why is it being used like that? I went, I have no idea, but it was so much better without songs, So I think just seeing the final result, and finding that one song that works so well, or getting a clearance that you never thought you'd get. And being able to use your left and right side of your brain, because I do clearance, soundtrack, on camera, like every part of music. So creative, obviously. So I think it's, for anybody that's interested, it's a great job. It's fun. It's a lot of work. And we don't get paid well.
Well, the work, it's paid off with several Emmy wins and another nomination this year. So congratulations on your
Thank
very
you.
well-deserved nomination, and ending this show with a bang.
Thank
For
you.
everyone
Thank
who's
you.
watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Stick with us the rest of the season. Robin, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.